It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? Is that over? You? Oh, okay. Uh, Welcome, neighbors. Another day. If you know we're live, I don't even know how to describe outside. It's not cold, but it also is not hot. And so it is still a good day to be alive. Another shooting last night, according to Buffalo News, one dead, one injured. What is going on? Had several funerals in the last week, 7 days. Another one coming up next week of people, young men, killed in our community. I'm really very, very concerned about this and the fact that it is us killing us. And I know really a lot of people don't want to have that discussion, but I think that it is important. So welcome to our Facebook audience, welcome to our YouTube audience, and of course our AM and FM audience. I think we really got to have this discussion. Also this week, is it this week? Yeah. Met with clergy and community leaders. There is something now called the Urban Think Tank, which I think is wonderful to have people get together and not only talk about ideas, but try to implement them. So there are clergy on this Urban Think Tank. There are lawyers on this Urban Think Tank. There are other community leaders on this think tank. And they are meeting with not only elected leaders, but also now with school board people to talk about education and how important it is, especially when we have had a pandemic and all of our children in Buffalo Public Schools were learning from home. Now, folks, it is difficult. If you don't have any children who are in school, it is difficult because, and you already know that, these children, these students are behind the eight ball, and now even worse. And so I was really privileged and pleased that the Urban Think Tank is taking this up as an issue and saying this is a crisis. And I truly believe it, and my guest in a few minutes tell you his thoughts, why he's running for school board in the suburban district. Our children, and when I tell you, I was on the school board, I always talk about my frustration with being on the school board when you really couldn't get community support for what it is that you wanted to do and the changes that needed to be made at that time, which was many years ago. I would be begging parents to show up and show out. I think that we should be as outraged about education or the lack thereof. And I want to say this because I personally think Dr. Cash is really, really trying. Personally, I believe that. But I do believe that that we have to really concentrate and make this a crisis situation. I've got two students in my house who it's tough. I'm just going to tell you it's tough. Now, one, and I've said this before, it's probably been his best year because he hasn't been in trouble. And the other, who's an 8th grader, wants to go back to school. But if we don't see this, and folks, this is my fear, and this is the school board did not create a pandemic. I want to be clear. So this isn't a blame game for me, but it is facing reality that our children, especially brown children, already have it tough. And them being out of school this long is making it even tougher. And
Completely agree.
yeah, it's going to be hard for them to either go to college, because remember, they're going to be competing. Going to college, unfortunately, is a big competition. Getting in college is a big competition. And you have to have the grades. You have to have the extracurriculars for some colleges. And if they don't have them, we're looking at a possibility of a generation of children who will be playing catch up. Now, as much as I don't enjoy seeing children go to summer school, I really, really don't, because they've been, they've been at home all year for most of them. But especially in Buffalo, a place like, if you lived in Southern California, Texas, Florida, it may be a little different because they have months and months and months of sun and being able to be outside. We are so limited in that in Western New York and in the North that when summer comes, I love to see children be able to enjoy their summer because they're in kind of lockdown for so many months. But I believe that, and I've read this somewhere the other day, that it will take years of summer school to catch up some of these students. So I think that is so concerning, and we have to be concerned about it, where we might not want to put our children in summer school if it's open, but it's going to take years for them to be able to catch up, and I'll just say it, compete with some of their suburban counterparts who, even if some of them were instructed at home, were already above the reading levels, many of them, the math levels, all that. So a decline for them is not a life sentence. A decline for a student in an urban area who is struggling already, it can be. And I think we've got to have this conversation not only with parents, because a good point was brought up in the urban think tank. Many of the parents didn't get the education they needed and deserved. And so now you've got many parents at home with students, and the parents can't help the student.
Right.
I've always said I think that not properly educating a child and giving them the chance, keeping them home because you went out to the club and they got to watch your kids, I really think it's child abuse. I really do. And especially when there's opportunities to do it. So.
In some places, that's the law.
Yeah, it's the law here too. But how many times is it really the front burner issue? Welcome to Amber Bowling and Carolyn Lane joining us, all of you who are joining us. Will you just share right now? Thank you, Janique, who's on. Amber Bowling says charter schools are open. My grandson loves going to school. The setup they have for the kids are awesome. Well, there's a moratorium going in, right? Did they decide on that? They're trying to.
Yeah,
in the state.
In the state, yep.
So they're trying to do a moratorium on charter schools. 2 charter schools in Buffalo, and I'm not saying whether that decision was right or wrong because I dealt with one of the charter schools. But I'll say this. Now, I might not have, I don't want to see any school closed that's open because where are those kids going? And unless they're going into a better situation, but, I'm not on the school board. And I didn't see throngs of people down, or they can't come down to the school board now, but I didn't see a lot of speakers. I didn't see any protests. I didn't see anybody saying, marching, saying we need these schools. So 2 schools are closing. Westminster, which was a premier charter school at one point, and Enterprise And so there's a concern about that. Janique says that's a good analysis. Thank you for a different view. Yeah, and this says not decided yet. Yeah, I think COVID has done a job on us, but we better wake up. Speaking of school boards, I have with me a special guest today. He's no stranger to the city of Buffalo. He is a minister in our city. He also runs a, I don't know, do we call it halfway house in 2021? Is that what the term is? A transitional residence, and has been very successful in that, even when there was some community pushback, that he worked with the community. He didn't force himself into the community, as I remember. His name is Terry King. He's an author. He is a husband. He is a father who adores being a dad. And then I found out something else about you. You're a builder. Like you built onto your house significantly with your own hands.
Yes.
Terry, welcome to the show. You're running for school board.
I am.
And as a disclaimer, the views that you hear on this show are not necessarily those of the sponsors or the station. They are the views of the people who are speaking them. Reverend Terry King running. Now, I know what it's like to run and be a minister, even for school board, because when I ran for school board, there hadn't been a full-time pastor who was successful in winning an election in the city that I know of. Somebody told me something about somebody in the county. It must have been long before my time. How does it feel to be in this race? Is it Williamsville?
It is Williamsville, and it's a battle. It is a war. I knew.
Let's talk about for a second why you want to run, because that's what's important.
You know, it was really last year when COVID struck, and I watched and listened to the cries of parents and students affected by COVID, the restrictions, the school plan in Williamsville, the dysfunction of the board, not really getting clear picture as to why the kids weren't going back to school, and then really receiving dozens and dozens of letters and correspondence from parents asking me if I could get involved and help. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't realize the depth, the need, the degree of hurt, pain, anguish that parents and students were struggling with. Mm-hmm. Not just the return to school, but clarity on the school purpose and options that were available. And I began to inject myself and challenge the board to get answers as a parent first. Mm-hmm. And then as I began to get involved publicly, it became overwhelmingly apparent to me that they really needed a culture change of leadership on the board, that the status quo and working for years in secrecy and not being transparent and accountable both to the taxpayers, parents, and students was just not something that was tolerable and sustainable in this day and age.
So you have people requesting you to get involved because you had a voice, a platform, or what? I mean, you were a parent like every other parent.
It started out as a parent concerned, and then as people began to reach out, I began to listen. As I began to listen, it became overwhelmingly apparent to me that others wanted to encourage me to run. Mm-hmm. And for months I prayed about that, considered it, and I also understood that my past would come into question.
Your past.
My past.
You ready to talk about that?
I am.
Because you know when you run for office, they will dig deep to if you have an opponent or you have people who don't want you to run. They will dig deep. When I ran for office, after I'd already been on the school board and then I ran for council, not only did they come up with some harebrained stuff of saying, one of them was that I had got a ticket on the subway. I've only been on the subway once in my entire life, and I was an adult, and I was living downtown, and I think I let my daughter use my car, and I had to run over here to church, and I took the subway to Ferry and got off and walked down. I didn't realize I'd catch the bus at Maine and Utica. So that was the only time. But it was, he had a ticket, this, that, and other, and then just nasty, horrible rumors. You're in the thick of that right now.
Oh, I am. And you know, Pastor Darius, I think you know me well enough that I've never shied away from sharing my past.
You wrote a whole book about it.
I have, and I've tried to be as transparent in my life and what God did to me 22 years ago to turn my life around and give me new life in Christ. And I've lived my life to serve the needs of others and put my own wants and needs aside because I have the privilege to live this life. 25, 35 years ago, my life was not pretty. Alcohol controlled my life, and I made some horrible choices. I did some things in my life I'm not proud of. But they were choices that I made at the time that I was held accountable to, one of which resulted in the death of a 19-year-old child, vehicular manslaughter charge, and I went to prison and I served time for that.
And you have spoke about, this isn't hidden, folks. I want to say this. It isn't hidden. You wrote a book about it. You have traveled this country telling your story and then gave your life to help other people. So this is not a secret.
That's right. And back then I was in investment banking, and some of the investments that I participated in or I helped fund through other limited partnerships were not successful. Now I hear stories on the internet that I defrauded elderly people. I was in prison when one of the lawsuits against one of the significant stockholders of the group sued. I didn't defend the action because I wasn't guilty of what I was being charged with, and I was also incarcerated, and I had no means to defend a civil action. That judgment was ruled against the person that was responsible, and he subsequently paid over $800,000 in damages.
And anybody can be charged.
That's right.
The question is, was that a civil suit?
It was a civil suit.
So you didn't have to pay in the civil suit.
Correct.
You were charged. Usually, and I think about the city, when somebody slips and falls or feels that, the city is up, they sue everybody down the line, and then usually in court, they'll weed out who really isn't a part of the lawsuit. So you got weeded out, basically.
And if they read the case and the settlement, I had a default judgment because I did not appear in court. And the person that was responsible ended up paying all of the judgment because they were the responsible party.
Absolutely. Got it.
Yes.
So so that's been out there. Now,
Yes, it has.
And I don't know because I have divorced social media a long time ago. I use it only to put up stuff for public consumption, and then I'm off because it can be a dark place at times. And so that came up, something that you didn't even have to pay, something you could not defend yourself because you were incarcerated at that time, and you did your time for vehicular manslaughter.
That is right.
So what else is being circulated? Is it those?
Those are the primary issues, and that I'm untrustworthy, and that my past should be a measurement tool that would preclude me from being able to hold the office. And I take exception to that because my life in the past 22 years has been dedicated to service, without question. Chairman of Saving Grace Ministries, CEO of Saving Grace Ministries, working with the Ferry Street Project, working with the law enforcement group. Over the past year, I have been very much involved in a work with law enforcement that works for those officers nationwide that are suicidal and offering crisis intervention teams for critical response. It was about 10 months ago that the group that was founded by an FBI agent asked me to become a board member. And at their board meeting, they elected me their board chair as an ex-offender, someone who understands what it is to have a redemptive life and live that life with honor and integrity. I was truly humbled. And that is the man that I am today.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've known you for years, and you have been one of the most forthright persons coming forward to say, here's my past, and here's what I've done with my life. And you've shown it. Obviously, the government trusts you because they trust you with millions of dollars a year in order to get people back into society who have been incarcerated.
And one of the other charges that were made by one of the other groups that are opposing us is that I haven't been transparent with building Saving Grace. We house sex offenders. And we certainly do, and we serve all. We don't discriminate against anyone that comes in. If you are alive and you're coming out of incarceration and you need a home and you need a lift up in life, no matter what color, creed, background, you're coming to Grace House. And you are going to receive what you are duly owed in society to keep you well, on the right track. And
because they have to be accountable when
you
they're at
have to
Grace
be
House.
accountable. And years ago, when we first started, we worked with your office, the mayor's office. We worked with the sheriff's department, Buffalo PD. We worked with our neighbors, community, block clubs. Our decisions to begin housing those that had mental health illnesses and others that truly had needs for the will of public safety was not made independently. It was made as a group, and it was made as a community voice. And it was good public policy. It remains good public policy. And we serve a vital need in our community. And our last 22 years of work in Buffalo prove that.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I'd rather see a person who is coming back into society have to have some accountability and not be on the street because we know recidivism rate is very high when there are no services. And even with services, there could be recidivism, but at least they're connected to services. Your office doesn't, your group doesn't, organization doesn't just house them; it helps them. I commend you for that, and I don't think that you should be battered for trying to make people's lives better, because I don't think you're taking sex offenders to the school board meeting.
No.
I don't get it. I don't get why you're talking about Williamsville and you're talking about Buffalo, and I don't understand what that argument is about.
I think it's fair, and I think it's one of the things that I said the other day was I stand for equality, inclusion, and social justice reform, and to oppose me says I don't stand for those items. Because if we don't believe a life can change and have value and meaning and purpose, is that the same attitude we have towards kids we don't like?
Yeah.
Or somebody that doesn't think like us?
Yep.
That is not the role of the school board. The school board must be a body that makes policy, hires a superintendent, and carries out the will of the people that elected them.
Yep.
And they have to place students and parents first. And when I see that that's not happening, I'm going to rise up and be counted. My voice will be heard.
Yeah. Yeah, this thing, and school boards are really, they're supposedly nonpartisan. It is a public service, basically. And, my heart bleeds for you. I've been through it myself. But what you have to do is, if you really believe in something, you got to stand there and you got to do it.
Over and over, I've been asked that, well, when you vote on the school board, you have to vote what those that have endorsed you support. And I found out last year that 9 of the sitting board members were 9 union-sponsored elected members. And look, I understand that the union has a vital role. Teachers need that vehicle for their contract, for workplace policy and rules and guardrails, especially when they come against an environment in the work where it might be hostile, and they have to have a way to grieve that injustice that they're experiencing. So they have a purpose. But when one agency overwhelms the will of a board, then it is not a balanced board that represents community.
So who do you have a team that you're working with?
We do. We have a team, Williamsville Students First. Several thousand parents have rallied behind the support from myself and Dr. Littman and Dr. Swaroop Singh. The three of us are united. We have held a series of meetings over the past several months, getting to know one another, and our hearts are united behind common theme, four pillars that really just cannot separate us.
So I have to do this because when we have one candidate on, by law, we have to allow others if they desire to come on. I don't call people and ask them to come on. You contacted me. and asked me to help get out your word of really what you were going through. So if there are other candidates that contact us, we would have to, and we'd welcome them. I think that public discourse is very important, and hearing all sides when there's a campaign. Is this your first time running for election?
Oh, it is.
Is it your last time?
I hope not. I had 1,000 slingers last week, and to see walking the streets, and we went door to door and passed out 1,000. You know, passing out 100 is hard, but we passed out 1,000
During COVID.
during COVID.
I'm surprised anybody answered the door.
And you know, it was really
Was it
neat.
face to face, or you put them in the door?
Some were face to face.
Okay.
Many were put in the doors, but my son had gathered some of his friends, and to see the students walking with me, understanding who I am, and these are students that didn't have to come out on a weekend,
Yeah.
but they care,
Yeah.
and their parents were there,
So
And
you've
there-
got parent support.
and we have teacher support.
Wow.
A groundswell of teachers that have reached out and are going door to door. We had teachers from other communities come into the district to say, I'm going to go door to door and hand out stuff because this is too important.
How are you getting teachers? They're just coming to your campaign?
They have come into the campaign, and I welcome and I humbly am grateful for their support, and to hear them and be able to listen to their care, their concern, and what's important for them, to have the tools, the safety, and understand the pressure and the tension. You know, we talk about our children and learning loss, which is very real. The mental health aspect, that we're going to have the supports available to them when we return to school. Even now when we're not in school, they need those supports. But I've come to realize that some of our teachers are deeply struggling. They're struggling with emotional. They have children. They have parental responsibilities. They have their own life, and they're going through some stuff. So what are we as a district here in Buffalo, Windsor, what are we going to do to help support their mental health and the things that they're challenged with? COVID affects them too.
Yeah, let's talk about, you mentioned your son. And when I was a single man, and you're dealing with political hate and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of just blow it off, right? When you got kids and you have a wife, it becomes a little bit more challenging, at least for me, because I wanted to shield my children away from it, and I tried my best, but that didn't work. And so I decided to toughen them up and go, this is a part of life. And how are you dealing with that?
I started out wanting to protect him and shelter him from that.
Yeah, yeah,
But then I had to be dad.
yep,
I had to say, you know what, son? This is the real world, and this is part of the cruel world that we really do live in, and we have to navigate. And you're going to understand, not everyone's going to like you. Some are going to judge you. Some are going to hold your past against you. But we're going to rise up. That's not how far the Lord's brought us. He brought us this far to get us to the other side.
yeah.
And we're going to keep marching forward. And he's there with me every morning.
How old is he?
He's 14, going
Wow.
on 15, going on 26. He's a good kid. But every day we talk about it.
Yeah.
And we pray about it, and he's with me.
Yeah.
And my wife is. And he knows that the hate has come. He knows some of the comments. I've allowed him to read it. At first I wasn't. I wasn't.
That's
Then
a natural dad instinct.
And then I said, you know what? He's going to hear this at school. He's going to see comments. And to see his belief in me, I'm going to keep going. I was asked to resign.
Wow.
I was contacted last week, and it was highly suggested I consider withdrawing my name from the ballot, and all this would go away. And I thought to myself, it's not going away.
It's not going away.
My
It's already
history's-
out
My
there.
history's already out there.
Right.
You're going to attack me, then you're losing the real issues of what's important to our children.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to protect your own agenda. And that's exactly why I'm running, because this isn't about another element's agenda. This is about our kids.
Did you take that as a threat?
Yes,
Wow. What was your response?
I'm not quitting.
You know, you think Williamsville doesn't have any drama in it. You know, I thought all the drama was reserved for Buffalo, but it seems like the location doesn't matter when it comes to,
No,
to these
not at all.
races.
No.
Do you regret getting in this race?
No, I don't. because I knew I was doing it for the right reasons. Look, you're not paid in this position. It's a huge commitment of time, as you know. So I had to come to terms with, this isn't about me.
Yeah.
It's not about my ego. It wasn't about my pride. But God said, I've given you some tools in the toolbox. You've been able to be a consensus builder. You've taken people that didn't necessarily welcome back offenders to understand the importance to service these people that were marginalized and voiceless and give them a voice. And when I see that our children who are voiceless and marginalized, the Lord told me, I need you over here for a season.
So school board, and obviously you hope to get the win.
Yes.
What happens if you don't?
I keep being a voice. I'll have to assess next year's elections, but I'm not going away.
You'd run again?
I would run again.
So you're saying it's better for them to just go ahead and let you win this time. Well, I mean, it all comes with the territory. It is about, having a stiff upper lip and having strong shoulders and just getting in there and doing what you got to do. I know that it can sting. But there's something about once you've been punched, and if you learn how to take that punch, that you operate better. And for me, it always makes me just more determined to do whatever it is I've been sent to do. And at the end of the day, if you said the Lord said it, you better do it.
Well, and I think too, somebody said to me, oh, you got to answer all of these statements on. I said, I could spend my whole day chasing other people's comments. I said, the real challenge is, will they ever really have the want or desire to get to know me, the person that I am today? I have to admit, I don't think I'd necessarily vote for the person I was 30 years ago. I was not a nice person.
I doubt if you would have voted for you from what you've told me.
But that's not the person that I am today. And I think it saddens me that in America today, we're so quick to use social media and statements to denigrate someone just because we think they don't agree with our agenda. And we don't look at the value of human life in the value of what people can be.
Yeah. Terry King is our guest today. Again, this is not an endorsement. This is simply a conversation so that he could get his voice out and be heard on the issue. I think back to Jesus and them bringing that woman to him and saying, we caught her in the act of adultery. And he just keeps writing on the ground and then finally says, whichever one of you is without sin, cast the first stone. He said the oldest one, the eldest of them was the first one to walk out. And so I think, I don't know of anybody without any past. Now yours, and you have been very honest. Yours, what happened was horrible. Mm-hmm. And you went to jail.
That's right.
And you served the time and you came out. Have you been back to jail since?
Oh, no. I have to speak.
So
I have
you
to
have
encourage.
Not been arrested again.
Oh, no.
You have not done the same actions.
Oh, no.
And I mean, to be clear, since it's out there in the public, you struck a person, I believe, driving or something. Was that what happened? There was an accident, and
Yes.
And you were intoxicated.
Yes.
It's in the book. Mm-hmm. It's public.
Yes.
The only time you've been back to jail is to speak at jail,
That's right.
but not being locked up
That's right.
again. Anything else you want to add before?
I just, COVID is real. The stresses are real. The tension is real. Our children, our public schools, our schools in general, we really need to look internally, each of us, about taking the politics out of the schools and looking at what's the best interest of each child.
All right. Terry King, thank you, sir.
Hey, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Bless you, man.
So I want to talk for my last 20 minutes about charter schools. It's a whole day of education talk, So the state is I don't know where the votes lie, but when are they voting on whether they're going to do a moratorium on more charter schools?
I think it'll just be whenever it comes up on the agenda. I don't know if they have a set date or anything yet.
So basically, is the item to stop schools, more charters in the state?
Just the city of Buffalo.
Oh, see, I know you got contacts over there.
Yeah, I do got some
So
contacts.
it would be to, where's the school board on it? Have they weighed in?
I'm the one. I think they're the ones kind of pushing it.
I want to know what you all think out there about charters and the state considering no more charter school, well, a moratorium. So for a period of time, no more charters opening, no new charters opening. Am I right? That's what it is?
Yeah, that's correct.
So is there a move right now to kind of collapse the whole charter movement? Because I'm seeing schools close. I'm seeing all that kind of stuff happen.
No, well, I think there's some of it where it's just kind of people trying to prove the point, do charters really work? And I think that's where some of this talk really is. And because I think the two district charter schools that were closed, I think they were because they were constantly not meeting the numbers, but they were still in existence as a charter. Mm-hmm. So I think that was just kind of the move, like, well, you can't ask for a charter moratorium and then keep these two failing charters open.
You all don't have any charters out there, right? No. But yeah, because yeah.
Well, and then, we got suburbanites that then get shipped to the private schools.
Yeah, exactly. What's the graduation rate out there in Williamsville? Do you know?
High school is 98% college placement.
98%.
8% college placement. And 2% are other, but
That's just the two that moved out of town that they forgot to take off the rolls. And that's the sad thing, is that's what those two are. But wow, 98% college placement. I better, man, oh man, I'm glad Monique is not on to hear this. Charter or no, should the state allow the city of Buffalo to put a moratorium or basically pause any new charter schools? Now, I know that there are several people who are trying to get in the pipeline for new charter schools. I know that Bishop Badger is very interested in opening a charter for males only, so that we could get a hold of these males. Amber Bowling on Facebook says divide the other two with existing ones. Melanie says my granddaughter goes to Tapestry. I think it's a great option. All my children went as well. It's an amazing school. I want to know why the moratorium. I guess I just don't know.
is the opposition about funding stream?
Well, I mean, obviously, I disagree with taking money out of the Buffalo Public Schools, because then the children in Buffalo Public Schools, in some ways, suffer. I've always said, if we're going to have charter schools, that we have to find a funding stream that doesn't devastate the district. Because once that money is gone, it's gone. And there's sometimes that the student goes to a charter, leaves the charter doesn't reimburse Buffalo Public Schools, who has to then pick up that child as a student.
Yep.
And so
And I think they're
I think that's horrible. I think it's horrible. Or like transportation, the Buffalo Public Schools still has to provide transportation. And this is what I am. I'm not pro-charter. I'm not against charter. I'm pro-student.
Absolutely.
That's where I am. I'm pro-student, because our jails are full of full of people who didn't make it. We had a service here the other day for a young man who was killed, and he actually was doing well in school. And graduated from high school, which is not something you see a lot of times. with some of these cases, graduated from high school. Two of his teachers were here, and he's out of high school, 20-something years old, but two of his teachers were right here at the funeral because of how well this young man was doing in school. At the end of the day, I'm just pro-student. That's what I am. I don't. When people say, "Well, what side of the argument are you on?" I'm on the side of the argument that says our children need a great education. They need a great education, and this is the sad part. If you move out of Buffalo, folks will call you a sellout. And that's how they're a sellout. They're a leader in this community, and they're gonna have their children. But at the end of the day, you gotta care about your kid. So I don't begrudge anybody who says, "Hey, I'm moving here." My son chose to move to Cheektowaga. And part of that was, he was interested in what the school system was for his children, Maryville, and all of his children, all of them graduated from high school. I don't know. So talk to me. Do I have a phone line? Can I use the phone line?
Yep.
I've got 15 minutes. You can call me. We're going to put the number up. Oh, there it is. I only have to look over. Just calling the church. 895-8222, extension 223. 895-8222, extension 223. Or if you're on the social media platforms, give me your opinion. Do you feel that charter schools, that there should be a moratorium on charter schools, or should there be more charter schools, or should we just collapse the whole system? If I had my choice, and it would be to the detriment of children, unfortunately, I think you just need a whole new way. But the reason I say it would be detriment because it takes time to get used to that new way. It takes time to test out that new way. But the way of even educating right now, and this came up in the think tank, is somewhat dated. In Williamsville, traditional classrooms, what do you account to why there is a 98% college placement of high school seniors?
I think it's not only the curriculum, but it's the early elementary school, so much personal one-on-one attention.
Whoa.
When you see a child in second and third grade and he's struggling to get on grade, they're immediately pulled out. It's done in a dignified manner. They're assigned a tutor or someone who is going to work with them through the week. So there's a constant identification of those that have needs from early on, so that by the time they get to middle school, junior high, they're on grade or they have a track that will help them. And I think that's,
so it's that early education.
It's early. It goes back to kindergarten, first grade, second grade. In my own son's case, I remember in second and third grade, areas where he was really struggling for a host of reasons. Those interventions came. By the time he hit third and fourth grade, not only had he overcome those deficits, he sailed way beyond and began to really enjoy school. But it was those fundamental interventions in kindergarten, first grade, second grade that they had those in place.
Yeah.
That made a difference.
Yeah, you said something very powerful that basically starts very early. Mm-hmm. I also think surroundings and responsibility of adults. Obviously, you don't live in Williamsville. I don't know what the poverty rate is in Williamsville, but I would imagine
17% of the student body.
It's 17%. So that's very low. And so we know that poverty also plays a part in education, especially if the parent is not educated. It's a harder climb. But that's interesting. You talk about the early childhood. And I know here, and when I was growing up, we had what was then called early push, which was before kindergarten. Here in the city in Western New York, we have Community Action Organization.
Head Start.
Now it's called Head Start, run by Community Action Organization. I don't know if there's many other organizations that are doing Head Start. Is it just unless it's private? I know there's some private.
I think they do them by county, or so I think like CAO got Erie County and
Right.
Niagara County, things like that.
Right. So I think that is so important. But I don't know where I'm at on this whole charter moratorium. To me, if there is going to be a moratorium, then it should be to make this system better.
Absolutely.
So we're going to do a moratorium. We're going to figure out, and especially financially, because if that doesn't occur, and I've served on the board of a charter school. Matter of fact, for a while, years and years and years and years ago, I served on Enterprise board. And I thought then, and I'm talking, when I say years, over 11 years ago, 11, yeah, at least, I thought it was a good opportunity for parents to be involved, to try innovative programming. But what my concern with charters has always been is the siphoning off of struggling students. And part of, I think, what the problem is when you talk about closing a charter is that the charters are being judged, to me, at times a little differently, because it's like, okay, if you keep students that have come out of a system where the reading scores are low, below grade, and I keep that student in my school, it's going to bring down my scores. If I bring down my scores, I have the chance of losing the charter.
Right.
So it's all of this stuff going on where, okay, if I keep this child who's maybe acting out and doing bad in their grades, then it's going to affect whether we can stay open if we have enough of those. So I see this being, if there's going to be a moratorium, I personally don't think that a charter should be able to siphon a child out. I really don't. I think you're open, School 53 can't siphon them out.
And I think if you do, I think it should be something that's like done at the end of the school year. Like when you get to the second market period and you're like, yeah, well, your grades aren't cutting it. You got to go back to public school, or not public school, but like Buffalo Public School.
Right.
Then it's like, but like you said, then you're like, well, I'm behind there.
Yep.
Thought I was getting ahead here. So now you're resetting the child mid-year. So I do think that's a struggle. And I was going to say, so I was a public school kid my whole life.
Yeah.
But my public school system was almost like Williamsville. It was a feeder, almost like a feeder program, where at K through 3, you knew what you were being prepared for 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
When you went to 4, 5, 6, you were being prepared for 7th and 8th grade.
Yep.
When you went to 7th and 8th grade, you were literally being prepared for, hey, this is the high school you're going to, this is the classes you're going to take. And you always constantly were being prepared for where you were going next.
Yes.
Not just, oh, this is what they say we should teach you now.
Well, I think I remember one of my children having an issue at a charter school, and the head of that school saying to him, well, maybe this isn't the right setting for you.
Maybe this isn't the right school.
Yeah, and I said, oh, it's going to be the right setting, because I'm not the parent, because I've taught school. I'm not the parent that just takes up for my kid, because I see my kid every day. So do I know the kid can have an attitude? Do I know the kid can check out? Absolutely. But what is not going to happen, you're not going to just shuffle them out so that you don't have to deal with, and I'm not about to allow that for my child. One thing my parents taught me a lot, but one thing that they taught me, they wouldn't let me quit a job one time. I tell the story all the time. My parents never wanted me to work in school. I wanted my own money. I got a job at Niagara Lutheran Home around the corner from our house. And I got an attitude with the boss. I don't know how, I might have been 14, 15. And he said to me, I'll never forget it. If I can remember his name, I'd say it right on there. He said to me, Mr. Pridgen, I had some white jeans on that I wore every day. I was transported every day that I went to work. Those are not the right pants. And I was like, oh, I've been wearing these. I don't know. I've been here, half a year. And he says, and by the way, Mr. Pridgen, you're starting to get peach fuzz on your lip, and you may consider shaving. I was at work. I was like, all right. I had a lunch break. I went home, sitting there, ate my lunch, watching TV. We had floor model TV. And my mother comes in the room, and she says, what are you doing? I said, oh, I ain't going back. She said, what you mean? Ain't you supposed to be back at work? I said, I ain't going back to that job. I said, I will not, that man will not talk to me like that. I don't have to work. Y'all don't want me to work in the first place. She cut off TV and said, oh, no. You wanted the job. And the one thing you're not going to do is be a quitter when things get tough. Go to work. And I worked at Niagara Lutheran Home until I went to college. I worked at Niagara Lutheran Home until I left Buffalo. Matter of fact, I was in the Criterion because I was 16 years old going to college, and I worked it until then, and then got an award from Niagara Lutheran Home later. So that's the kind of thing that I think we've got. You know, I'm not going to put my kid in the school system and then say, oh, you can quit every time you get mad, every time you get an attitude. No, you take and you'll tell the school. Janique Curry says, absolutely, there is a movement to close charter schools, not because of academics. It has to do with the funding. Charters are public schools, and there are equity issues when it comes to
busing, special education, and a variety of other things they are entitled to but have to fight to get the resources.
Melanie says, yep, 1-to-1, and I don't feel city schools can and are able to provide those types of supports. Wow.
I recommended in my election, this is a time for us to reimagine schools. We need to really have an honest conversation about learning loss, mental health issues, charter schools, and what the real school emerging is going to look like. And are we going to even offer remote learning on a long-term basis for those families and parents that have found it to be very productive for them? And, you know, what are we going to do for learning loss? That same argument is going to have in Buffalo and every school district in America.
Well, you know, I think that what COVID has showed us is that there are different methods of learning or different opportunities. I have one who is thriving online, doing fine, and the other who just is really miserable being at home. Not miserable being at home, but very miserable learning at home. And he needs and wants that group dynamic. Right. I would love to see a hybrid model in the future. I learn one way, other people learn a different way, and in different environments. So,
but I think that also comes with an investment into the system, and not just throwing money at the system.
Absolutely,
it's being deliberate and saying, okay, like you said, we want to go with a hybrid model. We're going to give this school, your district, $1 million to put cameras in every classroom. Not just, oh, well, we're going to increase student funding per student.
Yeah.
Because then that money just is like, okay, well, the cost of gas for the bus goes up. And it just goes to the bottom line. It needs to be deliberate investments into that reimagination of the system.
Because what would happen if you, instead of suspending a child and sending them either to some learning center or just home for 2 or 3 days, what would happen if there were classroom cameras and you still have to go to school? You still have to get the lesson. And some would say, well, kids will just mess up to get put out. You got kids messing up to get put out anyway, but most kids, go ahead.
I was going to say, and we didn't have that option. We had in-school suspension.
Oh, wow.
So like if you got to the level of in-school suspension, the day before,
you
had to go to all of your teachers, get all of your classwork, and then we actually had another building.
Wow.
So you got bused to another building. You sat in classrooms with all of your schoolwork, and you had to turn it in to the teacher or whoever, the administrator who was running in-school suspension.
Now I don't know. I mean, thank God my kids haven't had to. They get suspended. They just get suspended. They got to come home. Hobson's the doctor of dry cleaning, 874 East Delavan. Folks, take your clothes to Hobson's. Why does he have on a suit with a bow tie? Because the mayor is going to release his budget today at, 2:30?
2:30.
2:30, he's releasing his proposed budget.
Proposed.
That comes to the council. The mayor proposes and the council disposes, which basically means we can't add dollars to the budget, but we can cut. So it's going to be a very interesting couple of weeks with public hearings and all that, but that's why I got on the suit. That was cleaned at Hobson's, the Dr. Dry Cleaning. Don't forget, in a pandemic, they need to stay afloat too. So I know you're not going as many places and you don't have a whole lot of places, but things are opening back up, and Bloomberg says he's getting ready to open up New York, period.
And I was going to say, they can dry clean jeans and
Oh,
white tees and everything
they
they want.
certainly can. Hobson's, the Doctor of Dry Cleaner. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home. He had a funeral here this week. 347 Peckham, 2528 Bailey, 1275 Sycamore. It has been a busy week for Brian. Taking care of families. They took care of the Pearsall family, the Hollander family, the Lewis family, Frank family, the Begum family, the Zinnerman family, the Jones family, and the Mills family, just to name a few. Thank you to Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home and Hobson's. Until next week, we say power to the people.